Welcome to Lumenaries, the podcast, the ultimate destination for all things lighting and production design. I'm your host, Christopher Bolton, and I'm thrilled to be your guide through the fascinating world of cutting-edge software and lighting design methodologies. On today's episode, we're embarking on an exhilarating journey through the illustrious career of Mark Wynn Edwards. With over 30 years of industry experience, from crafting architectural wonders in the Middle East to orchestrating visual masterpieces for primetime TV and blockbuster films, Mark's influence reverberates across continents. From the infectious rhythms of Jamiroquai to the raw passion of Slipknot's formative years. Currently, he's on tour with Simple Minds in Australia, igniting stages with his unparalleled lighting design and skilled programming. But Mark's contributions extend far beyond the world of music. At Vari-lite, he revolutionized lighting technologies as a product advisor and stand designer, shaping the future of live entertainment. And speaking of live entertainment, I had the pleasure of catching up with Mark in Adelaide during a Simple Minds show. It was an unforgettable experience witnessing his mastery firsthand and sharing insights into his remarkable journey. This is Lumenaries, the podcast, where the spotlight is on learning. Mark, thanks for joining us on the show, bud. I managed to hook up with you when you were in Adelaide for Simple Minds, and it was such an awesome experience. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's good to have people front of house. It's usually quite a lonely place.
To get us started, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and let our listeners know how you got into this game?
I think I'm into my 30th year now, and it's fair to say I get bored. And I've gone across a lot of disciplines: architecture, TV, film, live concerts. And I started way back when working for a little company in Leeds called Lights, who he got me from working in a venue. I was the house guy, learning my trade, so I thought. And I went to Coney and was taken under the wing and properly taught how to do this job and how to be doing this job. And it's been this never-ending thing of next level, move to this company, move to that company, work with this band, work with that band. And here we are.
Has it always been based around the UK?
Yeah, but working with international companies. So, I worked for Vari-lite for a little while, which was, certainly a high point. Getting to work with the best out there, because it was the heyday of Vari-lite, working with the best gigs, the best crew, the best everybody on the most part.
So you didn't actually do any formal training per se. You just worked your way up the job the hard way like all of us did.
Yeah, no formal training. I mean, obviously I've gone away and done a few courses, but I tend to shy away from those as well, because the way I learn stuff is mostly different to how things are taught. I need time to do stuff. I've just taught myself MA3, and that was doing a little bit, walk away, do a little bit more, walk away. And I don't think they'd go for that in a training room. It's like, where are you going? I've had enough.
It can be difficult. I mean, I know when I do the training with the guys, traditionally it's a 2-day training course, and I actually do it over 3 days because 2 days is just too much for you to absorb it. And I try actually stop and let the guys apply the theory that I've just taught them rather than just go. It's just too much.
Yeah. And I tend to have to find my way of doing things, which, I don't know, maybe I'm very obtuse. Who knows? It's good because you talk to other operators, because I use 2 platforms, as you know, and that I find ways of doing stuff that other operators have looked at and gone, what did you do? How did you do that?
That's awesome. So if you had to look back to your early days, do you have any, like, what's one of your fondest memories? One of the times where you were like, wow, this is cool? And I mean the early days. Obviously you've had lots since, but I mean when you were in your youth, shall we say?
I think probably. So it was back when I used to work for Cody, and I was very young, very fit. I remember they used to do a lot of these, what do you call them? Fireworks and ants in your sandwiches type gigs for the classical orchestra, that sort of stuff.
Fireworks and ants in your sandwiches.
I remember once sitting watching this and watching all the fireworks. It was a gorgeous summer's night, and I remember thinking, you know what? This is all right as a job. This really is all right as a job because everything was working. It's a beautiful summer's night, fireworks. I didn't have ants for my sandwiches. I didn't have sandwiches. Um, but yeah, I remember thinking, you know what? I think this could be a good job.
So obviously, part of for your touring, you've traveled the whole world substantially. Have you kept track of how many flights you've done?
Oh heavens, no! I can't say I'm particularly fond of flying. I accept it's a necessary evil. I accept it's a thing. It doesn't necessarily mean I particularly enjoy it. It's it's the having to stay still and sat in your seat type thing. Those days have gone. I've been able to run up and down the aisle.
Are you sure you don't have ADHD?
Well, it's a possibility, isn't it?
I've got ADHD, and it sounds very much like you've got ADHD, my friend.
It would probably explain a few things. It really would.
So, do you have any favorite countries or places that you've worked in?
I firmly believe that part of my heart belongs in Copenhagen very strongly. I feel very comfortable in Copenhagen. In that stillness that you get that arrives in Copenhagen, and I can actually feel it build. When you're on a bus and you're rolling in, I can feel it sort of wash over me. I'm like, yeah, this is good. I like this place.
That's great. But have you been there during the winter though?
Yeah, considering I'm somebody that likes heat, I can tolerate it. I really can because it's proper cold.
Yeah, it's proper cold. It's different. It's like a dry cold.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You just put another layer on and you're fine. Not like something that's trying to get through to your bones.
Somebody once said to me, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing.
Yeah, very true. Very true. A cinder that lives in Yorkshire. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
And out of all the places you've worked, I'm sure you've got many stories to tell about the crew that you've had to work with. Do you have a favorite crew that you want to mention that you worked with on your journeys?
I think because I have an affinity with the city, Chicago crew.
Oh yeah.
Um, I get on very well with them. It's actually another place I feel very happy and still is Chicago. Um, and the Chicago crew, I always get in very well with them. We get on with each other. Um, and I don't know why that is. I just like it. I just like the crew there. They get on with it. I think is the best way to put it.
Because traditionally the American crews are very, very different from the European crews. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. But you learn how to make that work, and there are always ways of making these things work. Either when we were in New York last night, they did this in however many hours. You appear to be behind time. Do you want to be worse than New York crew?
No, you don't. You don't.
Yeah,
Hey.
yeah.
So obviously you spend a lot of time traveling and a lot of time in aircraft or in buses and stuff. Like, how do you occupy your time? Is that when you sleep and rest, or do you do some work in transit?
Yeah, I quite often do the advanced patch on show files. Get up early before everybody else has woken up, sit in the bottom lounge, watch the world go by, sit with my laptop, pre-patch festivals, that sort of stuff. Sit and have a nice morning on the bus, before everybody wakes up.
And I suppose that would be because the gentlemen had enjoyed themselves the previous evening and having a nice sleep in whilst you're doing a bit of work.
Yeah, and I will drink alcohol, but I don't drink much because I just can't deal with it.
No, cool. So I don't want to get too political, but I do want to understand, like, just briefly, how's Brexit directly influenced you in the levels of the complexity around planning a Euro tour?
It's been horrific. It's added a whole new level of work with carnets and extra paperwork to justify why we're taking where we're going. As a friend of mine put it, it's like trying to hack your foot off with a butter knife. You'll get there in the end, but it's going to be arduous,
and it's going to hurt,
and it's going to hurt a lot. I mean, we had a thing last year. We were out. We had to do a transfer from the UK to Ireland, Southern Ireland, and then from Southern Ireland to Amsterdam. As we sat there and we figured this all out of how we were going to do this, because the tour was booked before Brexit happened, there was this sudden wave of realization of how horrible this is about to be. Luckily, I'm good with a load of lighting companies based over in Ireland, and it was a good few phone calls going, do you have this stuff in your warehouse? And we basically took their warehouse out for the day. Because I said to him, we need this many fixtures, we need this. And he was like, oh my word. I was like, yep, go. I was like, go and get some paint. You can paint the warehouse floor finally, you know?
But you're so lucky that you had those people to contact and they had availability.
Yeah, in fact, I've been told since he actually went round some contracts and said to them, do you need those lights on that day?
Wow.
Are you working with those lights that day? Can we borrow them for 12 hours and then bring it back?
Insane.
And that's what happened. You make it work, but it's horrible. It's just horrible.
I know you're also a very passionate guy about your craft, like many of us. How do you go about keeping your skills up to date? Like which formats? Where do you find the information? How do you keep your craft at the cutting edge?
Actually, if you take some time to go to the trade shows, and there's a lot of people who I know in the industry at this point in time, they know not to do the sales pitch with me because I don't care. I rather stand looking at their stand and just sit and watch what new fixtures do, how it does that, what it looks like. Because the way my head works is I log what these things do in my crazy mind.
Yeah, and what they shouldn't do, I suppose.
Yeah, and there's a good few manufacturers who will just go, the rig that our stand is on that desk. Off you go. Go and play with it if you want. Go and play with them.
Have a look.
Yeah, go on.
That's
Go
brilliant.
and have a mess because there's no point telling me what stuff does because that means nothing to me. I'm all about the visual.
Sure. You want to see it for yourself, and I suppose a trade show is the best way to do it because it's tactile. You can actually walk up and touch it.
Yeah, totally. And said to them, "Do you mind if I fire this across the building? I want to see if I can hit that sign over there." And they're like, "Oh yeah, go on, man. Here we go again."
Because you know the scale of what you're going to be working with, so you need to be able to see if it can do it.
Yeah, totally. And it has been known for me to point lights towards the competition's stand and go, "Yep, I can still see your beam. Right, next."
Amazing. So I know you are well versed in most of the consoles on the market, and I know you also own a big personal collection of them. So why don't you make us all a bit jealous and tell us which machines you have?
Including the historic ones?
Yes, of course, including the historic ones. Those are the ones we're all excited about.
Okay, here we go. We've got a Vari-lite Vert DX with the outboard and the what do they call it? Tech wing, the little wing.
Where did you find that?
When I was working the second time I worked for Vari-lite, I mentioned it because it's one of the first desks I ever learned, and I mentioned it at a meal. I said, you know what? I was like, I really love a DX. I was like, you can't really do much with them. I just want one because it's part of me. And I didn't think anything of it from that. It was just a throwaway statement on my part. And one day I was in the warehouse and this very confused looking courier turned up and was like, I've got this massive wooden box for you. And sure enough, that it was. The bit that's even better, because what they were doing is they're clearing the warehouse out in Dallas of stuff for new kit. And I've got to thank Greg Brooks for the desk. He left a message on the top. He's like, open the bonnet, have a look what's inside. And I opened it up and it's serial number 01.
Oh my word, you got the first one.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, does it get any better? Does it get any better?
No, it does not. It does not.
What else is in there? There's an awful lot of Hog 4s of various flavors, which are the live desks. There's a MA3 in there. There's a Jan's event. There's a Pulsar Masterpiece, a Selco Gold Special Edition that was done. That it was a small desk and had a shift button, so you could shift the faders. It was done for.
Jeez, wow.
I can't remember the guy now. It was a special build, and it was basically of the ones to have. This is the one to have because it had the shift done and it was custom made. You know what? I have a hard time remembering what else is in there, to be honest. There's a Lee Colortran in there
Insane.
because that was my personal desk at Coney, and when I left, I took it with me.
And you know what? That's one of my biggest regrets is as time went by, I sold my previous console to make up the difference to buy my next console, and I regret it deeply. I wish I'd kept all of my consoles, because when you and I met, I had an M6 that I was
Yeah.
working on, and then I went over to the dark side and got to the MA2 stuff, and then I sold my MA2 for the MA3, and I actually wish I still had all my machines. I even had a light jockey with what was called fingers. I don't know if you remember that. It had like it was like a silver thing. They made. It used the serial. It has a serial port. It used the serial port to connect to a laptop. So yeah. But I know you still use the Hog on a regular basis. Is this purely because it's what's available, or is this something that you had as your preference?
It's all about the connect. I don't need to zone out of what I'm thinking about and how to do stuff. I can just do it, whilst it's there. And I find that because I can set it up, the way I set them up, it's very quick for me and I don't need to think. I've got, it's very much that, doing that, there, with this, over there, save,
And it's going to work. I suppose it's like learning a language, right?
Yeah, totally. I'm getting there with MA3s to be like that because you can set your own profiles and this sort of stuff. It'll get there. I mean, the MA3 is live, but there's still work to be done. There's still a lot of things that
definitely still work to be done. But if you would you recommend that other users take the plunge into MA3 in your opinion?
I would say totally. Yeah, totally, because it's quite a steep learning curve.
It
depending
is.
on what you came from. For Hog, I actually found it quite easy to do the early days because it's the same, very much the same.
That's interesting.
But it's quite a steep learning curve. There's a lot to learn, and as it gets things fixed and things evolve, I think that learning curve could get quite steep very quickly for some people. I think I've said to a few people whilst I was taking it out last year, they're like, "Oh yeah, I need to learn to that." I'm like, "Get on with it, get on and learn."
I was actually thinking to myself that if you'd never touched another console before and you got introduced to MA3 from the beginning, this is how you program lighting. I think it would actually be easier because you get so used to your own methods and ways of thinking with other platforms. And a lot of the questions I often get from some people are like, yeah, but Hog does it like this, or Onyx does it like this. And it's I think it's true. If you learn a console from the ground up, you don't have that bias in your mind.
Yeah, totally. And there's going on moving across to MA3. There was a lot of things I absolutely adored.
That's cool.
I'm always the guy that likes the stupid little stuff. Not the big stuff. I always like the stupid little stuff. So when I've done beta testing, I send people messages back for like things I've not liked in betas, and they're just like, "But we don't care about that." I was like, "But you should."
Yeah, you should.
So it's like the swipey things, like the swipies. I adore the swipies.
I love the swipies. They're so cool. So cool.
I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool."
And you got to constantly remind yourself, just swipe, man. Just touch it and swipe it instead of having to look on the actual hardware for it. That's cool.
Yeah, it's great. I wish you could customize them, to be honest. So you could actually have more things within swipies.
I hope you made a suggestion because that's a really good one.
Yeah. Cut down the amount of clicking about.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that, actually. I'll make a note of that and I'll speak to the guys because that is something that would be really cool. If you could modify your own swipey, that would be super cool. If you were on a particular page, like if you were on layouts, make Swipey do something that makes sense for layouts. If you're in the program and if you're in the 3D, make Swipey do something for 3D. That'd be really cool, actually.
Yeah. We turn the MA3 into like doing Minority Report, with the thing in the air.
Yeah, exactly.
People will be stood there going, "Where the hell's he doing up front?"
I guess. So I know you often, when you go on tour, you're actually touring with more than one platform. So sometimes you're working on MAs and sometimes you're working on Hog. How do you go about planning to do a tour if you know you're going to be working on two platforms that don't communicate with each other?
Do a lot of work. Do an awful lot of work.
A lot of work.
I mean,
Okay, so there's no easy way. There's no easy way, basically.
no, no, there's no easy thing here. You can go in with the planning and make sure that your patch makes sense, so it's quick to get stuff running. You know, the good old fashioned Devo style of patch where you start at one and then just run across. That never fails. Yeah, keep it simple.
Keep it simple, Simon.
Yeah, totally.
So if you were on tour and there's no issues with the rig, so you arrive at a venue, the guys have done their job. How long does it take for you to be show ready? From walking into the door, updating presets, the size of the rig might vary, but approximately how long does it take before you're having a pint at the bar?
um, I'm actually annoyingly fast. I've toured where it's double operators out front, somebody doing the support band, and yeah, they're just like, how are you done so fast? I keep my pallets to a minimum because I work the rig into split pallets. So if there's a rig, one lot will be doing one pallet, the rest of the rig's doing another pallet. It's amazing how dynamic you can get with only maybe, I don't know, 6 positions.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I agree. I agree. I'm a 4-5 preset guy. Like,
yeah.
And then traditionally, if you update your center preset, as I call it, it normally fixes the rest of them plus minus. If you've used them better. But yeah, so keep it simple. Basically, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, don't overthink it. Just don't overthink it whatsoever. Keep it, and the thing is, you've got to be quick because some festivals you're going to turn up late, and you might be the headliner turning up late, and you've got that 30 minutes, 45 minutes in the changeover to get your gig working. And, and especially if you're headlining, it's also got to be right because it's going to be on the front page of something the next morning, potentially. And you sit there looking at that one light that's doing the wrong thing, and you just like it burns through your soul.
And you try to fix it. Try to fix it during the show quickly, like, oh my god, update.
Well, and that is the thing, and I get a lot of people asking about this, about being a desk op. It's or the desktop side of it. It's not about pressing go at all. That's the fun bit. You need to be able to multitask and keep that rig running. I mean, there are people who tour a second guy to keep the rig where it should be, but 9 times out of 10, it's just going to be you.
Yeah, and 9 times out of 10, absolutely. You and some crew you've never worked with before. That's the honest truth, eh?
Yeah, totally. And you've got it. It's quite an interesting thing, really. The fun part is the operating part. There's so much more that happens in the day.
It's almost the easy bit.
Yeah, it really is. It's the time to sit and chill.
Yeah, well, you do make it look easy, I must say. Now, I know from having been at front of house with you when we met, and I think it was your second JK tour to South Africa. I think it was 2013 or something like that, somewhere around there. And then again, the other night, I got to watch you operate at Simple Minds when you were here with us in Adelaide. And you also trigger a lot of media and video playback. So, artistically, this must have huge benefits. Do you have a favorite media server? How do you handle backup for something like that? And do you get to make your own content and create your own content?
JK stuff, that was mostly all my content because it was all very filmic, and I was taking video in like the snow on an unplugged TV and really messing with stuff. I also have a degree in creative media and video that I did briefly. For Simple Minds, we've got a content designer, but we work together very closely. So my overall role in Simple Minds is show designer rather than LD. And my remit on Simple Minds as show designer seems to be growing on a daily basis. We're down to now what people wear. But anyway, I think my comment on that was, have you seen what I'm wearing? Do you think I know anything about fashion? My overall favorite media server has to still be Catalyst, as much as I'm moving away from it because times are moving. It's more is wanted, more stuff is needed. So I'm moving across to Resolume and having all sorts of crazy going on with that, which is actually what I'm figuring on the downtime for this is how we do that, because we're getting very creative with where video appears, how it's being done. And the next tour that goes out is an awful lot of, I suppose, bits of screen everywhere. And we don't, we've even developed a lexicon for the tour. So the side screens are not IMAX. It's not an IMAX screen, it's a side screen. And content beats IMAX content. So the content is going over the top of the footage of the band and making it one huge thing. And it's this thing of, it was the big thing about screen almost being like a telly in a pub. You know, people just sit there, mouth open, watching telly, and making it this thing that spreads and fills the entire arena space. So I think we were talking about it, weren't we, when we met in Adelaide, saying about the fact that a lot of the early notes that people get for telling them what's coming to their venue, a lot of it's left blank when they're like, oh, what trimmer, your trusses, and all this sort of stuff. It's like, I don't know. We fill the space. We fill all of that space.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. Until you're there and you feel a bit, okay, give us another meter or bring the back bar down another half a meter just to spread things apart.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
That stuff should be left to be flexible until you're in the space.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, fixture choice has come for being stuff that can do the job. You know, I want to get the person in the back, the very last row. I want the person in the very last row that is miles back. I want them to sit there and feel like the show's for them as well, not just the people who paid. Not just the people that paid for the first few seats on the first balcony who are getting the gig.
Yeah, I must say I was blown away because I managed to watch Simple Minds from the front, and then for the second part of the show, I came and stood behind you, which was superb. Having the option of being able to see both sides of it was really cool.
Yeah.
So, but you must travel with a lot of your own gear, then. Hey? Do you send it with somebody, or does it travel with you on the aircraft, or how do you go about that?
We've got a fly pack. So within that pack, I've got a console, and we usually get whoever's providing to bring a backup console. There's the media server. It's all control package mostly that we take, and there's a debate of some of the fixtures that I use on the rig. We're finding very hard to find everywhere, and are actually starting to be key fixtures. It's ironically those panel lights. Yeah.
I was going to say, is it like those big square panels you have on the back?
Yeah.
Are those custom ones?
No, they're I think they're made by Chauvet or something. They're a very random fixture that I found years ago in the back of a lighting company that was providing. I was like, what's that? That looks interesting. And it's this thing, isn't it? It's not always the highbrow brands that have things interesting. You know, lighting manufacturers are producing all sorts of crazy, and sometimes they don't make it to be massively public. But I found a whole set of these, and I was like, you know what, I kind of like that. So I'm trying to hunt them down to buy them, and then we just take them with us. It's easier. It's so much easier.
What would you say is currently your weapon of choice? So, you know, is there any hardware or software that you think particularly sticks out?
I don't know, you know. I really don't. I have favorites I always ask for, but my go-to a lot of the time, because you do a design, you get given the appearance that you've got some choice, but then you send your design off to these various hire shops, and they go, well, that's great, you've picked these fixtures, but we don't have them. But we have, you know, the Spangle 2000, but I don't want the 2000. I want the 3000. It's like, And
I suppose that's the joys of touring, eh?
Yeah, totally. And you know that I have to admit, I tend to put Roby fixtures on designs. You know, the fixtures work. You know, I've done tours as a moving light tech back in the day when Roby first became a proper thing to use on rigs. For like a year's tour, I maybe did one thing.
Yeah,
You
awesome.
know, it's like these things just don't break. And
They
having done
don't.
the factory tour, I fully get
Mm.
why they don't break. You know,
Yeah, I know Joseph personally, and I know all the guys there. I've been to the
yeah,
factory a few times myself. It's just a spectacular piece of kit. I mean, they just don't break.
no, no, and it's fair to say I've put some of their fixtures through hell. I mean, I sent you the one from the Saudi games where
Oh
there was a
yes,
light essentially in fire, and
on
I
fire.
and we pointed a laser heat sensor at it, and this thing was sitting at like 90 odd degrees, and
What?
we're like, should we move that light? And the lighting company were like, well, it's going to be a real hard job getting up there. You know, just leave it, and
Yeah,
it won't. And it worked. This thing worked. It just kept working.
amazing.
I even
That's
gave it
amazing.
less duties just in case it did stop working. And no,
Was it a BMFL by chance?
yes, it was. Yeah,
I love BMFLs in all shape and form, but the BMFL wash
yeah,
beam is definitely my favorite fixture of all time, hands down.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the guy in the pub that just like, oi, oi, oi,
you can
oi, oi,
you can really handle his beer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, sits in the corner, arm wrestling everything. You know, you're just like, my God. I mean,
That's funny.
I've had them on fire. I've had water running through them. I've had them go through rains, like epic rainstorms and everything, and they just keep going. You're like, my God.
That's
At
awesome.
the
It's
end
a
of the
well-made product.
apocalypse, oh, the end of the apocalypse, it'll be BMFLs, Twinkies, and cockroaches left. That'll be it.
Okay. That's funny. And Keith Richards.
Yeah, Keith Richards sat on a burnt out chair. Yeah, it's
Oh, that's funny.
crazy. Yeah,
Oh my gosh. So I know you mentioned earlier, and I know we have spoken previously about, your close connection to the Vari-lite family. Um, are you still involved at any level? Do they still get your opinion of any of the products lately?
occasionally they do. You know, when we all have time to talk to each other, you know, I'll see them on a stand. One of the MDs will sort of, yeah, come this way, come over to this. You know, I've
Oh, that's
my
cool.
it's relationships never die, do they? You know, and my pretty much unnerving bluntness at times is actually what's needed. You know, I remember them presenting a load of fiction. I a long time ago stopped being. It's not necessarily polite. It's frilly in how you're talking. I think it might be because I live in the north of England. I don't know.
Well, speaking about bluntness, I had a conversation. I don't know if you remember the Roby one lead beam 100s when they came out. They used to have those ridiculous top hats that clipped on,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
then but if you clip them on, you have to go onto the fixture itself and use these fiddly little buttons and put on the tilt reduction mode. And if you forgot to do that, which they often did, the second you move the tilt up all the way, all the top hats would come flying off them. So
yeah.
I made a comment to the supplier, to Duncan Riley in South Africa. And next thing you know, I had a call from Joseph wanting to know why I had a problem with the 100s. So that's actually how I met Joseph. I was like, well, hello, Joseph. Thanks,
Hi.
Duncan.
Yeah. Hospital pass.
Yeah, exactly. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, so I mean
But,
that was a pretty stupid little thing. And but the 150, the Raby one Lady 150 is spectacular. It's such a nice little fixture.
yeah, I've had a few moments definitely where I've had people going, go on then, stand behind what you just said. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you've done it again, Mark. You've done it again.
Exactly.
But it works, you know, because the thing is I think in some ways it would be a better place if people were a bit more blunt about stuff.
Just to get back towards the actual training side of things and trying to share some of your knowledge with our listeners, how would you? I mean, I watched you the other night. How would you explain your approach for programming music? I know it's more busking and than actual structured approach. But what would you say are your secrets if you were a young guy and you were going to teach them how to prepare for a musical tour? How would you go about it?
Know the music is the very first thing. Do your research, learn the track, and I don't just mean listen to it. I mean learn it. They don't just do main section, chorus, second section, chorus. They do leads. There's a lead into the chorus, so sometimes that needs attention. But as for how the desk works, or how I run my show, is I have a cue list, a structured cue list that keeps us back to a structured section, and then I have a whole load of stuff that runs over the top that I do manually in time to add accents,
like overrides, basically overrides and stuff. So
yeah,
you've got
yeah,
something to fill and okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
little chases, little bumps, little bits, little sparkly bits to go over the top. But then underneath that, there's the stuff keeping it structured.
so if the band one night is feeling a bit more energetic and their tempos are changing on stage, how do you keep all your stuff in sync? Do you have a tap?
I have a clear button. So you have to have a good relationship with the drummer. And
Okay.
I always say to the drummers, you can go anywhere you like with this, but I
Yeah.
need a full stop. I need an absolute full stop. So probably it's a flam or
Yeah.
something like that on the drums, and crack, done. Back in
Mm.
the game. Off we go.
Back in the game, yeah. I tell you, the lady from Simple Minds blew my mind. She was unbelievable. If anybody gets a chance to
Cherise,
see
yeah.
them, she's incredible. What a drummer.
And she's playing in high heels. She can't play
What?
flat feet. She plays in high heels.
That changes it
Yeah,
completely. That
yeah.
changes it
Oh, she's
completely.
amazing. Because I'm a drummer and percussionist when I have time to do such things. And
Really
we
now?
were
That's
in,
interesting as
yeah.
well. Man, you really are a
And
man of many hats, aren't you?
well, one tries. Um, we're in I forget what it's called, the big drum center in New York, and I happened to go in there just to dream about bits and pieces, and was playing on a DW kit in one of their isolation booths, and there was another kit next to me, and I was there just busy, minding my own, and then Charisse comes into the drum shop, and she's looking through the glass window at me. Next minute, she's next to me and she just turns to me and goes, right, you've got a kit with double pedal. I've got a kit with a single pedal. I can't do double pedal, but I'm going to follow you. Let's do drum together and then we'll do a drum off. And I was like, you're a professional drummer.
Amazing.
I'm not a professional drummer. But I tell you, it was the most fun. It was absolutely most fun because, there is nothing like it, is there? It's to sit and play with a friend who is
Amazing.
also happens to be
Yeah.
good. And we ended up causing quite a thing. Lots of people stood who were busy
Brilliant.
looking and going,
That
wow, look at these
that's
two.
such a cool experience. You'd be able to say
Yeah.
that you had a drum off against the drummer with the band you're touring with. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is
Yeah.
definitely one of those kind of tours for sure. We're one huge family.
A lot of your success is owed to your personal relationships that you've built over the years with the creatives, promoters, artists. I know you're currently jetting all over the place with Simple Minds, having recently started the second leg of the tour in New Zealand and Australia. But do you have any favorite artists that you've worked with in the past that really rock your boat? And I know you've done a couple, but was there any artist that really made you go, wow, I'm having so much fun?
I think that very definitely has to be. Well, there's two bands actually, and they do actually nicely link to each other as well, which is kind of cool. It's when I used to work with Doves and Lamb. Doves because it was very, very north of England, it's fair to say, and all the crew came from the north of England. We all had very similar upbringings, childhood lives, and there was very definitely a feeling when we were going off to do these festivals, mostly headlining because they were huge at one point. It was like a group of northern lads off to fight the world. And then with Lamb, I was basically given carte blanche, do whatever I liked, do what you like, just go for it, do artistic, and I it's one of the few times I've been left alone to do what I want to do.
And I loved your approach on that because you really pulled back in some of the scenes and you actually draw people in. It's not always just huge looks with massive hundreds of lights pointing at the sky. In some of the scenes, you had one light on. And I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah, it became, because the music is actually quite artistic, the lighting followed. It became quite arty and quite just so. There was one song, it was literally the lights moving between one palette to another palette, and it took it 37 seconds to get there. And it took, and part of it was what happened of the lights doing their journey to get there. And it was going from one quite obtuse looking look to a different obtuse looking look, totally the other side of the stage. And it was great. But it went from this sort of stuff to things that are tearing your face off. There's one look, there was a song called Seven Sails. And I think to date, it's still the most abusive lights I've ever done. You know, the band, and because I'm still friends with all of them, they always said that they really struggled. They really, really struggled on stage. But because they'd seen video footage of it and everything that happened within that, they're like, we're just going to endure this. But holy hell.
It'll be very nice if you had some links to maybe some of the YouTube videos of these moments you're talking about, that we can share it at the bottom of the page so that people can click and see what we're talking about.
Yeah, there must be stuff. You know, it was definitely the beginning of, I could see the stage via people's phones.
Wow.
That has to
yeah,
be.
there must be.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. I'll have a look for some lounge stuff. There must be. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you toured with Jamiroquai for 6 years. And I'm not asking this question because I heard rumors, but what is your approach to dealing with tough customers? You know, artists with bad attitudes, and how do you deal with the unpleasantries that come with dealing with a difficult person?
I mean, JK wasn't that difficult to me. We actually got on quite well. I actually quite liked him, which is totally against what people would think. I got him. I don't know how, but we found a common ground. We found a common place to be. But I have had some artists that, yeah, I've not got on with in any way, but they're quite obtuse people. You kind of have to do your best
because they're prima donnas and they think they're special, or is it just you just clashed as personalities?
I think a bit of both sometimes. You know, I think in some cases you're a bit of a mystery to them about what you do, what you can do for them. You know, they're either so wrapped up in their own thing, or who knows what makes these people like they are. I treat everybody equal on the most part, but dealing with them, I think the best thing you can ever do is keep your cool. Remind yourself that it doesn't matter really. And just
it's just another day.
Another day. You just get through it. And just do your best with them, because some people, no matter what you do, it'll never be right, you know, for whatever reason. And
absolutely,
if it's that bad, I think the greatest thing you can ever do is have the realization that you can walk away from this stuff. We're freelance. You can walk away from a tour, and there are times when I have walked away from jobs going, nah, this isn't worth it. This is not worth my time, for whatever reason. And it is the most liberating thing you could ever do. You know, is discover that you can walk away. That is always an option. People will kick off. An artist who I can't mention, I walked off their tour, and we got through rehearsals, and I was like, I'm really not sure about this. Nah, this guy is a bit of a dick. We got to the very first show, and catering wasn't the best. It wasn't something that I could be sustainably eating from for, I think, the next however long. And there was too many no boxes ticked. So there was a few things said, and I just cleared the desk, walked out the front door of the venue with my USB held high, and walked away
running.
And And the production manager rang me as I was at the train station going, "Where have you gone?" I was like, "Going home." Bye. Funny enough, he raged at me. And I recently bumped into him at a festival. There's that memory of it. And he walked up to me and he goes, "Do you know what?" He says, "I absolutely hated you for a good number of years." He says, "And then one day, he says, I found myself in a similar situation. I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm going to do what Mark did." And he walked away from it. He says, "And I've gone from hating you to absolutely
Oh,
adoring you for the
brilliant.
fact that you did that and that you stood up to yourself." It took a long time for me to get there. He says, "But that was the greatest thing you ever could have done." I was like, cheers.
Yeah, it takes big brass balls to do that, mate. But yeah, sometimes it's what's needed, hey?
Yeah, yeah.
Just for something a bit more personal, being away from the UK as much as you are, how do you maintain your personal relationships? I know you have a young family. How do you find work-life balance? I know it's the hardest thing about touring because I've been there myself.
Um, it's certainly a lot easier these days with stuff like FaceTime, and I mean that's an absolute godsend. When I was in Australia, I had breakfast meetings with my boy every morning, which was always quite good. Whilst I was finishing my day, he was starting his day, and then it usually ring home again to my wife once she's taken the boy to school. It's a family thing, isn't it? Because your respective partner sort of goes into a on tour sort of vibe. They realize they've got to get stuff done. But I said I'm always on the end of the phone. If things need doing, things need doing. I will always maintain that family comes first.
I remember the early days of touring and being away from home where we didn't even have proper cell phones at work. You had to go and try and find a landline somewhere, and then you call the person and they're not there. And yeah, exactly. It would be such a problem.
Yeah, you disappear for 6-8 months.
If you had to just take all the equipment failure out of the equation, which, as you mentioned, you've been working with Robies, so there's not a lot of that. But if you take all the equipment failure out of equation, have you ever made any mistakes on the gig that really got you into trouble?
I mean, there's been the odd unexpected blackout and that sort of stuff. You can't. It's this thing, and I think it's what's called experience. Because I don't know about everybody else, but I make mistakes a lot.
It does happen.
But
We're humans.
yeah, yeah. But it's the skill comes from learning how to style that out. If you're going to bring some lights back in, bring them back with the beat. The song builds again in a minute. Let's make it look like it's a thing.
Exactly. If you make a mistake, as long as you do it on time of the music, it doesn't look like a mistake.
Yeah, totally. Just go with it. No, no, and that's what I was saying earlier about don't just listen to the music you've got to do. Fully know that music inside and out to the point you can tell your artist that they're playing it wrong, which has happened a few times. Going, you're doing that bit
Really?
wrong. Yeah, because
Wow.
because I've planned stuff for it. You wander over and go, oh, it's okay. So the fourth bar, that's not how that goes. Because
That's
yeah,
crazy. But I suppose they take it from you because you become a family, like you say, on these tours. You get to know each other
yeah,
exceptionally well.
yeah, and if you've got a good working relationship, they will take that on board. You're like, oh, say for the version that you gave me, you've got this play out. Can we do
Yeah,
that? Because I
yeah,
had something
yeah,
planned there. That
yeah.
sort of stuff. And if it's a relationship, isn't it? It's a working relationship, and you're all part of the same team. And
Definitely,
they want
definitely.
they want to produce a good show. So if you point stuff out, they'd be like, if I've noticed it, hardcore fans probably notice it as well.
Almost definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I know you do a lot of festivals with these artists that you tour with, and I know it's a very different situation because you're normally in between a lot of other bands. You're not always the headliner, so your turnaround times are really short. How do you go about differentiating your show from the other bands that are using the same rig?
Um, I think a lot of that comes through from how you do your focus positions, that sort of stuff. as we were saying earlier, use the room. A lot of my stuff is always very big, very wide, and you stick with that as much as sometimes you do have to drop your focus like right down. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, you got to point it at the artist, especially if it's during the sunlight. If it's during the day, I suppose you've got to make sure you point it all at the people.
Yeah.
Rather than up in the sky.
Smarties
right?
in the sky, that sort of business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just one last question before we say goodbye, mate. If you had to give advice to somebody starting in this industry, or somebody who's keen and wants to get into this game, what would you say to them?
Go work at a venue. Go and work at a warehouse, lighting manager. One of those lighting companies. Don't just think you're going to jump straight on a desk. You need to learn the core of it. You need to understand how those fixtures work. You need to understand how it all works to make it that when you get to the point of commissioning rigs, you have an understanding of what that means. So you understand that when you order some fixtures, it's not just some guy pressing go on a computer. There's a whole team that are working for you within that lighting company, prepping your gear and this sort of stuff. And I think you need to understand how moving lights work, because it means you program better and understand, and you don't ruin your lights. There's an LD who I used to take over from on a lot of his tours many years ago, and he wasn't the generation of moving lights. He started with power bars and that sort of stuff. And I would take over the show file from him, and I'd be like, what is going on? And the lights would be sat doing everything because he never pressed clear. And I said to him once, I was like, why do you never press clear? He goes, oh, well, I want to make sure the light can do it. I'm like, no. Don't just turn the lamp off and leave the light doing everything. Press clear, give the thing a rest. Because it used to be raining fixtures because it was ragging the hell out of them.
We used to call that blocking the toilets. Like when people don't follow tracking and they just store everything in every queue.
You have to have a full understanding of how stuff is. It also makes you a better person when you're on tour too, less angry.
Good luck for the rest of your tour with Simple Minds, and I really look forward to seeing you when you come back on Australia. Hopefully next time you can spend a bit more time in Adelaide. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right, see you again, mate.